Okay, so picture this. You're just about to give this huge presentation, right? The kind that's got you sweating a little, and boom, ransomware.
Oh, I know that feeling.
Your computer's totally locked down. And it's not some, tech horror story. This is like cybersecurity today kind of stuff. And that's why we're diving into this world. We're talking everyday threats, those things that can just stop life in its tracks, all the way to like the big picture of where digital security is going and our guide for all this. A really interesting episode of the TechTalk Nexus podcast. Episode 4, they called it, Cybersecurity, Navigating Threats and Protecting Sensitive Data. Catchy, huh?
I've heard of them. Definitely on my list to check out.
The thing that really hit me first was how cybersecurity, it's not some niche tech thing anymore. This is about protecting, well, our lives at this point.
Yeah, totally. That episode, it really made the connections clear. You mentioned ransomware hitting one person, but what about like a whole business, a hospital, even governments? Remember that colonial pipeline thing?
Oh, yeah.
Fuel shortages all over, people freaking out, prices going crazy, all from one attack. This isn't just for the IT guys. This affects us all.
For sure. So let's break down some of these threats, yeah? TechTalk Nexus starts with a classic. Phishing. We've all seen those too good to be true emails.
Oh, yeah. And they're getting sneakier. It's not just a prince needing your bank info anymore. Now it's like super targeted. They call it spear phishing, where they pretend to be someone you actually know or some company you trust.
Right, to trick you.
I remember that Twitter hack a while back. Even the big guys get hit.
Okay, so speaking of scary ransomware, it's like they're kidnapping your data and demanding a ransom, right?
And it's not just locking you out either. The podcast, they talked about how it can like shut down crucial stuff. Hospitals, imagine that in the middle of an emergency, their whole system's locked. It's way beyond just being annoying. It can be life or death.
Intense. And then there's the sneaky stuff. Malware and spyware. It's like having someone going through your digital stuff without you even knowing.
And they can be really quiet about it. Keyloggers, they record everything you type. Passwords, credit card numbers, everything. You might not even know until it's too late. So, yeah, good security software, browsing safely, all that is key.
Then we've got those denial of service attacks, DDoS, is that right? So
Yeah.
instead of stealing, these ones just try to cause chaos.
Right. Disruption is the goal. Imagine a doorway, right? But thousands of people are trying to cram through at once. That's what a DDoS attack does. Overwhelms a website or server until it crashes. Nobody can get in. Legit users are shut out. Businesses, they can lose a ton of money and their reputation, all from that.
Wow. So TechTalk Nexus, they also go into insider threats, which is kind of unsettling, right? Like, it's one thing to worry about hackers from the outside, but what if it's someone on the inside?
Yeah, that's why it's not just tech we're talking about. It's people, too. An unhappy worker, someone messes up, even like corporate spies. It happens. Building that culture of security awareness, having strong checks in place, that's so important now.
Okay, so if regular hackers weren't bad enough, they brought up these pro hackers, APTs. Advanced Persistent Threats. These aren't your average script kiddies. These are like the special ops of cybercrime, often working for governments and stuff.
APTs, they're like ghosts in the system. Super stealthy, really patient. They can be in a system for months just watching, taking data, and you'd never know. That whole SolarWinds thing, that was APTs. They snuck bad code into software everyone uses. Super sophisticated, far-reaching. Kind of scary how good they are.
It's like a spy thriller. And now, because everything's got to be smart, our fridges are targets too.
TechTalk Nexus called it the vulnerable Internet of Things. Right. Sounds kind of funny until it happens. But it makes a huge point. More devices online means more ways for them to get in. Remember that casino that got hacked through their fish tank? Security's got to be job one for anything that connects these days.
So that's phishing, ransomware, spyware, DDoS attacks, inside jobs, super spy hackers, and our own smart homes turning on us. That's a lot. But don't worry, TechTalk Nexus has solutions too. We'll get into those right after this.
Yeah, it can feel like a lot, for sure, all these things to worry about. But the good news is, knowing about them, that's half the battle, right?
Knowledge is power, like they always say.
Exactly. TechTalk Nexus doesn't just scare you. They give you tools, ways to fight back, which is what I liked.
Totally. Knowing the bad guys is one thing, but how do we actually protect ourselves? That's what matters.
Yeah. All right. And it starts with the basics, like good passwords, different for every account, all that.
See, now that's where I always struggle. A dozen passwords, all got to be super complicated. How am I supposed to remember?
And that is why you need a password manager. Seriously, life-changing. It remembers everything for you, all those crazy passwords. You just got to remember one master one. The podcast, They were big on this. It's not just being organized, it's core security at this point.
Makes sense when you put it like that. Okay, so then there's those update notifications. I'll admit, I ignore them sometimes. Are they really that important?
More than you'd think, honestly. Think of it like your defenses have holes, right? Updates are like patching those holes up. Hackers are always finding new ways in, and updates often include fixes for those exact things.
So it's not just about new features or whatever, it's actually keeping my data safe.
Bingo. Now, another thing people get confused about, encryption. TechTalk Nexus actually explained it pretty well.
Yeah, that's one of those words, as soon as someone says encryption, I kind of tune out.
It sounds complicated, but it's not really. Basically, it scrambles your data so nobody else can read it unless they have the key to unscramble it. Like a secret code only you and the recipient know.
And this isn't just like when it's sitting on my computer, but like when I'm online shopping or at the bank's website.
Exactly. That little padlock you see up in your browser, that means things are encrypted, your info is traveling safely.
Okay, good to know. So we've talked about tech stuff, but TechTalk Nexus also spent time on the human side of things, like employee training.
Right, because even with all the best tech, people mess up. That's why everyone in a company, from the top to the bottom, needs to know this stuff.
One wrong click on the wrong email and boom, disaster.
Exactly. And it's not JST about spotting those phishing emails. Passwords, how to handle important info, what tricks those social engineering folks use, and speaking up when something seems off.
Training. Okay, got it. Now on to the really techie stuff, firewalls and those intrusion detection systems. Those are still important, right?
Oh, absolutely. A firewall. It's like a guard for your network, right? It sits between your computer and everything else, controls what comes in and out, and blocks anything suspicious.
So like a digital bouncer, deciding who gets into the club.
Love it. And those intrusion detection systems, IDSs, those are like your security cameras, watching everything happening all the time, looking for anything fishy.
So if the firewall is the bouncer, IDS is the security guard watching all the cameras.
Gotcha. What about data backups? I mean, I know we should do it, but how's it a cybersecurity thing?
Because even with good protection, stuff happens. Ransomware, computer crashes, even just like a power surge. Backups are your safety net.
Like insurance for your data, basically.
Exactly. Worst case scenario, you can just reload everything and minimize the damage. TechTalk Nexus also mentioned this zero trust architecture, which kind of sounds intense, like you trust no one.
Yeah, a bit Big Brother-ish, isn't it?
It's not about being suspicious, it's being smart. In a zero trust setup, you got to prove it to you every time, even if you're already inside the network.
Like that saying, trust but verify. Exactly. It's becoming more important now with people working from home, cloud computing, all that. The old ways of keeping things safe don't work as well anymore.
Right. And lastly, privacy regulations. The podcast was really into those, but how do they help me, just a regular person?
These regulations, like GDPR or CCPA, they're there to give you control over your own information. Companies have to be clear about what they collect, how they use it, all of that. And you have rights, to see it, correct it, even delete it if you want.
So it's not just companies avoiding getting in trouble. It's about giving us control back.
Exactly. It's about evening the playing field a little bit.
Yeah.
You have a say in what happens to your digital life.
This has been super helpful, I gotta say. It's good to know what we're up against, but also that there are things we can actually DO about it.
For sure. Like we said, knowledge is power.
And if any of this has got you curious, I definitely suggest checking out the full Tech Talk Nexus episode, Cybersecurity Navigating Threats and Protecting Sensitive Data. It's a great listen for anyone who wants to really dive deep, Now, Tech Talk Nexus didn't stop at what's happening in Nebu in cybersecurity. They went full on sci-fi, talking about the future of this whole thing. And trust me, it's a wild ride. We'll get into that right after this. Okay, so buckle up, because this is where things get really interesting. TechTalk Nexus didn't just stop at what's happening now. They went full-on future of cybersecurity. And let me tell you, it's like stepping into a sci-fi movie in a good way, but also kind of, makes you think.
It's a wild time to be in this field, that's for sure.
Yeah.
The stuff that's coming up, it could change everything, not just how we stay safe online, but how we use the whole digital world.
And one of the big ones they talked about is AI, artificial intelligence. I mean, it's already changing everything, but for cybersecurity,
right,
that's like AI fighting AI, right?
Kind of, yeah. Imagine a system that eats data, like massive amounts of it, but does it LEVE and spots anything weird instantly. Stuff we'd miss, AI could be like, nope, that's an attack right there.
So instead of playing catch-up, we could be ahead of the bad guys, already blocking them before they even try something.
Exactly. Plus, AI can handle a lot of the boring security stuff, so the pros are free to focus on the really complex things, the strategy. It's like AI gives them superpowers, not replaces them entirely.
Right, that makes sense. But then TechTalk Nexus brought up this other tech, quantum computing, and how it could be a threat. And honestly, that one's a little over my head. What's the deal with that?
Quantum computers, they're not just faster computers, they're completely different. And they have the power to break the encryption we use for, like, everything. Banking, government secrets, you name it. It's a whole other ballgame.
So everything we use now, like, useless?
Not quite. The good news is the cybersecurity folks, they know this is coming. They're already working on what they call quantum-resistant encryption. It's a race, for sure, but I'm betting on the good guys to figure it out.
Keeps things interesting, right? Now, the last bit of future Tech Talk Nexus talked about was blockchain. I mostly hear about that with cryptocurrency and stuff. What's that got to do with cybersecurity?
Blockchain could change how we think about security entirely. Imagine, every piece of data has this record, can't be messed with, shows exactly where it came from. Every transaction, logged, can't be changed, and everyone can see it.
So like a digital paper trail, but nobody can erase it or fake it.
Exactly. And not just for money, either. Think medical records, knowing if digital art is real, even making supply chains more transparent, less fraud.
That's a lot to take in. It's exciting, all this potential, but also kind of overwhelming. Cybersecurity isn't getting any simpler, that's for sure.
Nope, definitely not. But that's what makes it so cool, right? Always learning, adapting, staying one step ahead. It's never boring.
Well, I can say after this deep dive, I feel a lot more equipped to deal with all this now and in the future.
That's the goal. And hey, staying informed, that's half the battle right there.
Absolutely. So big thanks to everyone for joining us on this deep dive into the world of cybersecurity. And if you really want to go deep, check out the Tech Talk Nexus episode. We talked about cybersecurity navigating threats and protecting sensitive data. It's packed with even more insights. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe out there, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.